Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome back to another My Favorite Things video. In today's video, I'm going to be creating a Christmas village on a mini slimline card. I'm only using two stamp sets today. This is Cozy Winter Wishes and Itty Bitty Holiday, which is the small sentiments. So I'm starting with 4 houses. I planned on having 2 on top and 2 on the bottom. I wasn't sure what color I wanted to stamp the trees in yet, so I will do them later. But I lined these up onto some white cardstock that is 80 pound, and I'm going to heat emboss these. So I prepped the cardstock with an anti-static powder tool, and I'm stamping these houses in an embossing ink. Now, it is really hard to see on camera, and I honestly wasn't quite sure how well it stamped in person either, so I am going to stamp it twice to make sure I have a really good impression. And then I'm sprinkling on clear embossing powder. I'm tapping off any of the excess, and then I'm going to have my heat tool nice and hot and melt that embossing powder. And this clear embossing powder is going to trap the white of the cardstock underneath. Now I'm ink blending 2 of the houses in Festive Berries Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to ink blend the other 2 houses in Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink. I like doing this technique if there's a lot of fine areas on a stamp set. It's just a really cute stamp set, but I didn't want to really color in all those small areas, so embossed resist is a really good technique to do for this. So I did take a rag and just buff off any of the excess ink that the embossing powder resisted, and then I die cut those out with the coordinating dies. So I dug through my drawer of inks and I decided for these trees, I'm going to stamp them in the My Favorite Things Milk Chocolate ink. I stamped those down and I did die cut those out with the coordinating die as well. For some sentiments, this is the Itty Bitty Holiday stamp set. I wasn't sure which stamp set or which sentiment I wanted at the time, so I'm just doing 3 of them at once. And this is on the Red Hot cardstock. I'm stamping them in a white pigment ink, and I love stamping with white pigment ink if I'm going to white heat emboss because I feel like I just get a lot better of an impression with my heat embossing. So I'm sprinkling on that white embossing powder, and then I'm going to melt that. After I gave that a second to cool, I'm going to bring this in to my little trimmer here and just trim these down into very thin strips. So I'm lining the top of my sentiment with that clear ruler that's on the side there, that clear guard, and I'm able to trim these down into just really fine thin strips. And I did find this little baby trimmer of Tim Holtz's worked out really well for cutting small sentiments. Now originally I was just going to create my scene on the snow cone cardstock, which is this light blue, but decided I wanted to have just some subtle snowfall in the background. So I brought out my Make Art Station and I'm holding the Snowfall Stencil down with my magnets, and then I'm going to spread over the Moonstone Glimmer Paste. I haven't used this in quite a while, and this is actually the last of my jar, but once I spread that out, and then I can just scrape off any of the excess. Then I'm going to just carefully peel up that stencil, and I like to use my tweezers to help get under that and let this dry for a little bit. You want to make sure you rinse your stencil off right away so that glimmer paste doesn't dry on your stencil. And I like to take my finger and just kind of go over the edges. My snow cone cardstock was 3x6, which is the size of my mini slimline. And here I have a card base for my mini slimline. So it's a 6x6 piece of white cardstock that I scored at 3 inches. I'm holding it closed with Post-it tape. And then I added tape runner to the top of that card base. And I'm bringing in my stenciled panel and adding that on top. I like using my Misty to do that because I feel like it helps me line it up a lot better on the front of my card. Now to get my sentiment pretty centered, I'm using a T-square ruler and I'm going off of the 3-inch mark and centering my sentiment that I chose here, which is Cozy Christmas Wishes. Then I can start bringing in my houses. Now, while I was waiting for that glimmer paste to dry, I did add some foam squares behind the sentiment that I have in the center and also a couple of the houses. Now, for the ones that are going to be in the background, I'm using the liquid glue to attach those because it is a textured background. So once I attach it, I'm going to just hold it for about a minute or so just to make sure that it's adhering really well to that glimmer paste background. Then I can remove the backing of my foam squares and add my last house. And then I can repeat those same steps with the houses at the bottom. So you can see I kind of did opposite. I have a house in the back and then the tree on the right hand side. And so on the bottom, I have my biggest house on the right and the tree on the left. And I really love this type of design on mini slimline cards. I like having kind of that two separate scenes, top and bottom, and the sentiment in the middle. I wasn't quite perfect on placement, but I think it still turned out pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed today's card today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you again soon.